Let's bring in tonight's Dream Team panel to discuss former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and RNC national spokesperson Paris Dennard. Great to have you both back with us tonight, gentlemen.
Hey, Shannon, good to be with you.
Okay, so this is something in Mother Jones. It's under this headline. It says, "Stop blaming crime rates on defunding the police." It says, if the fear mongers are successful, many Americans will trade progress on policing and racial equity for a false sense of security, and that very well may be their intention. Paris, stop scaring people.
No, we're not scaring people. It's a fact. When you defund the police, you make cities like Minneapolis and other cities that have rising crime, violence, and murders less safe. And so what we know is when you have somebody at your door or somebody breaking in your car, you pick up the phone and you have an expectation that the police are going to be there to answer the call and come and protect and serve. And when you do not have the police doing that, when you defund them, you leave cities and communities of color especially vulnerable. So this is not fear-mongering, it's fact.
Let's put up some of the stats that we have in a number of big cities, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Minneapolis, showing the crime that's been rising. These are numbers. This is just hard data. And some other numbers, Kevin, that are important is a brand new Washington Post ABC News poll that looks at how people feel that President Biden is handling this. It says just 38% of adults overall approve of how Biden is handling the issue of crime in this country. 48% disapprove. And it goes on to say the numbers are, of course, favorable with Democrats, unfavorable with Republicans, but independents are a big problem for him as well. What does it mean for the president and looking ahead to 2022 to those midterms?
Yeah, Shannon, it's a good question. I think that's why you saw the White House so aggressively with the president and the attorney general last week talk about addressing some of the root causes of this violence that we're seeing. And it's horrific in our cities, in our suburbs, in our urban areas play out. And it's just tragic in the daily news that we're seeing with this spike in shooting. Part of it, I think, is people coming out of this pandemic. Part of it is the economic situations that we're in. But of course, there's also other root causes. We know, for example, that heading into summer months, we see more violence on the streets. So that's why you saw the president so aggressive talking about more jobs for youth for the summer, cracking down on ghost guns and gun dealers that traffic in these kinds of weapons that are used for gang violence, and actually putting forward concrete solutions to try and tackle this problem, because it is a critical issue, and we've got to bring Republicans to the table on this problem too.
Well, I got to say that I'm hearing from people across the board consistently on the show and just in real life say that they want to see enforcement of current gun laws that are on the books, and that a number of prosecutors, whether it's gun laws or other issues in some of these big cities, are letting people go without charges. They think that's an issue that we got to discuss, too. I want to discuss Hunter Biden as well, because we had some breaking news last night about these pictures that have surfaced. Fox News reports it this way. Images from Hunter Biden's laptop call into question Joe Biden's denial of talking business with his son. It says the picture becomes a political albatross when the politician in the photo insisted throughout his presidential campaign that he never discussed any overseas business dealings with the son who was also in the photo. Paris.
You just simply cannot trust anything that comes out of Joe Biden's mouth, because even when you have the evidence before you of all the things coming out of Hunter Biden's laptop as proof of these things that counter everything that Joe Biden has been saying, the mainstream media, other networks, they've refused to cover it. Joe Biden is culpable for these things because there's actual evidence and proof on his laptop. But yet the media doesn't want to cover it. Thank goodness we have Fox News and this show in particular highlighting these things. But the American people need to have trust in the people who put in office. They do not have that with Joe Biden. And if you go back to the last election, you saw many people said, I think about 10% said if they had known about Hunter Biden's dealings overseas and the financial advantages that he had, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. This is a major issue. It goes to accountability and credibility.
Well, and to the issue about the media covering it, Jonathan Turley, the professor on his blog, says if these emails are false, that's a major story. But if they're true, this is a major scandal. Presumably, however, the story will result in another run to the nearest ice cream shop for breathless coverage on the current frozen delights of the president. Kevin, quickly, does the president owe us some answers, the American people?
Well, I think I take anything coming from Rudy Giuliani's attorney, and these are where these photos came from, let's be very clear, with a big grain of salt. So I question anything coming out of now the disbarred Rudy Giuliani with regards to this. I'm happy to have the media investigate this. To Paris's point, Hunter was a #1 topic by President Trump during the political campaign that we saw in 2020, and Joe Biden got elected by 8 million more votes than Donald Trump, having adjudicated Hunter all throughout the fall primary the fall general campaign, for example.
Well, we all have to remember, too, the New York Post reporting on this was buried by social media, which then later, a lot of what came to light was admitted that it was factual, and maybe folks might have known that earlier. By the way, I think Rudy Giuliani is suspended. I don't know that he's disbarred. We'll check on that.
Sorry,
it's an important
suspended. You're right. You're right. You're the attorney, Shannon. Sorry.
Kevin and Paris, have a great weekend. Thank you both.
Happy Independence Day, Shannon.
You too.